The first sign should have been how quickly she responded to my joke. We were at a small dinner party hosted by my coworker Jared and his wife. 6 couples sitting around their dining room table, wine flowing freely, laughter echoing off the walls. Melissa, my wife of 4 years, sat across from me, looking stunning in the blue dress I'd bought her for our anniversary. Her dark hair cascaded down her shoulders, and when she laughed, her eyes crinkled at the corners in that way that had made me fall in love with her. Someone had suggested we play a harmless party game, the kind where you answer hypothetical questions. It was Jared's wife who asked, "If you could trade your partner for a celebrity or an ex, who would it be?" Everyone erupted in exaggerated gasps and playful accusations. When it came to my turn, I remember looking directly at Melissa with a mischievous grin. "I'd never trade her," I said, raising my wine glass. "She'd be impossible to replace." The women around the table cooed at my answer while the men rolled their eyes. Then someone urged Melissa to answer. "I'd trade my husband for my ex in a heartbeat," she declared, her voice light and teasing. But there was something in her eyes, a flash of something genuine, that made my smile falter for just a second. Everyone laughed, including me, not wanting to seem insecure about a silly party game. But later that night, as we drove home in comfortable silence, her answer replayed in my mind. Which ex would she have been referring to? Thomas, the self-absorbed musician she dated briefly in college, or maybe Sean, the one who got away she occasionally mentioned from her hometown. "You were hilarious tonight," I said casually, keeping my eyes on the road. "Trading me for an ex, huh? Which lucky guy were you thinking of?" She laughed, her hand reaching over to squeeze my thigh. "Oh, stop it, it was just a game." But she never answered my question. I wouldn't say Melissa and I had a perfect marriage, but I thought we had a good one. We met through mutual friends at a New Year's Eve party 5 years ago. I remember the moment I first saw her, standing by the window with a glass of champagne, laughing at something someone had said. She had this energy about her, a magnetic pull that drew me in. Our courtship was quick. We moved in together after 6 months, got engaged at the 1-year mark, and married 3 months later. Maybe we should have taken more time, gotten to know each other better, but when you feel that spark, that connection, it's hard to slow down. We had built what I considered a good life together. I worked as a financial advisor at a reputable firm, and Melissa had recently been promoted to marketing director at her company. We owned a comfortable condo in a trendy part of the city, took nice vacations twice a year, and were starting to talk about having children. Sure, the fiery passion of our early days had mellowed somewhat. That's normal, isn't it? But I still found her beautiful, still looked forward to coming home to her every day. I thought she felt the same. The morning after the dinner party, I woke up earlier than usual. Melissa was still asleep, her face peaceful, her breathing soft and rhythmic. I watched her for a moment, wondering what she dreamed about if I was in those dreams. Then I got up to make coffee. Her phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. Once, twice, 3 times in quick succession. I glanced at it, not intending to snoop, but the name on the screen caught my attention. Ryan. I knew that name. Ryan was her college boyfriend, the serious one before me, the one she rarely mentioned. They had dated for nearly 3 years, and from the little Melissa had shared, it had ended badly. Something about him moving across the country for a job opportunity and her refusing to follow. Why was he texting her at 7:13 on a Saturday morning? I didn't look at the messages. I'm not that kind of husband, but a seed of unease planted itself in my mind. Over breakfast, I casually mentioned, "Your phone was blowing up this morning. Someone named Ryan?" Melissa's fork paused midway to her mouth. A micro-expression of something panic, guilt, flashed across her face before she composed herself. "Oh, that's strange," she said, her voice even. "Ryan's an old friend from college. I haven't talked to him in years. Maybe he got a new number and was trying to reconnect with old contacts." It was a reasonable explanation. People from the past resurface sometimes, especially in the age of social media. I nodded and changed the subject, asking about her plans for the day. "Just some errands," she said. "Grocery shopping, maybe stop by the mall. What about you?" "I promised to help Jake move some furniture," I replied, referring to my oldest friend. "I'll probably be gone most of the day." She smiled, leaned over to kiss my cheek, and that was that. A normal Saturday morning in our normal life. except for the tiny sliver of doubt that had wedged itself into my consciousness. It was about a month later when I first noticed the changes. Melissa had always been attentive to her appearance. It was part of her job to look put together, but suddenly she was putting in extra effort. New dresses, new perfume, more time spent on her hair and makeup. She joined a new gym and started attending specialized training sessions 3 evenings a week. Her phone became an extension of her hand. She took it everywhere, even to the bathroom, and I noticed she had added a passcode, something she'd never done before. When I asked about it, she laughed it off, saying her coworkers had been playing pranks with each other's phones and she was just being cautious. Work events became more frequent. Client dinners, team-building exercises, weekend conferences, all plausible for someone in her position, but the timing felt convenient. And our intimacy, which had always been satisfying if not wildly passionate, decreased noticeably. She was always tired, stressed, not in the mood. When we did connect physically, it felt mechanical, like she was going through the motions. I tried talking to her about it one night after another rejected advance. "Is everything okay between us? You seem distant lately." She sighed, turning to face me in our bed. "I'm just exhausted, James. Work is intense right now and I'm trying to keep up with everything. It's not about you." I believed her, or wanted to believe her, because the alternative was too painful to consider. Then came the day I picked up her dry cleaning. It was a simple favor. Her usual place was near my office, and she had mentioned having a couple of dresses that needed to be picked up. I stopped by during my lunch break, gave her name, and waited as the attendant went to retrieve her items. He returned with 2 dresses I recognized and a man's dress shirt I didn't. "There must be a mistake," I said, examining the unfamiliar garment. "This isn't mine." The attendant checked the ticket again. "It's under the same account, sir, dropped off last Tuesday." Last Tuesday, when Melissa had said she was working late. I took everything, including the mystery shirt, and placed it all carefully in my car. Then I sat there for a long moment, my hands gripping the steering wheel, my mind racing with possibilities, none of them good. When I got home that evening, Melissa was already there, chopping vegetables for dinner. She looked up with a smile when I entered, but it faltered when she saw my expression. "What's wrong?" she asked. I placed the dry cleaning on the counter, separating the shirt from her dresses. "I picked up your things today. This was included. Any idea whose it might be?" She barely glanced at it. "Oh, that must be from the charity collection at work. We're gathering professional clothes for a job readiness program. I must have mixed it up with my things when I dropped them off." "Thanks for bringing it home. I can take it back to the office." A perfectly reasonable explanation. Again, she took the shirt and tucked it away in her work bag, then continued preparing dinner as if nothing had happened. We ate, we talked about our days, we watched a show together on the couch. Normal, everything was normal, except it wasn't. That night, after she fell asleep, I did something I never thought I would do. I checked her phone. The passcode stopped me, of course, 4 digits that could be anything. I tried her birthday, no luck. Our anniversary, nothing. The year we met, denied. I was about to give up when I had one more thought. On a whim, I tried 7926. RYN on a telephone keypad. The phone unlocked. My heart pounded as I opened her text messages. The conversation with Ryan was right at the top, with a message from earlier that day. "Last night was amazing. Can't wait to see you again tomorrow. Same place, same time." I scrolled up, my stomach churning as I read through weeks of messages. Flirtatious at first, then explicitly sexual. Plans to meet, hotel names, times when I would be at work or with friends. There were photos too, ones that she had never sent to me, not even in our most passionate early days. The evidence was overwhelming. My wife was having an affair with her ex-boyfriend, the one she joked about trading me for at that dinner party that now seemed a lifetime ago. I put her phone back exactly where it had been and went to the guest bedroom. I couldn't sleep beside her, not tonight, not when every quiet breath she took felt like a betrayal. I didn't confront her immediately. Some part of me needed to understand the full scope of what was happening before I made any decisions. So I began my own investigation. Ryan wasn't hard to find online. Ryan Caldwell, 34, recently returned to the city after several years working on the West Coast. He had a job at an architectural firm downtown, about 3 blocks from Melissa's office. His social media showed a good-looking man with confident eyes and an easy smile, the kind of man who probably never doubted himself. I took a day off work without telling Melissa and followed her after one of her training sessions. Instead of going to the gym, she drove to an upscale hotel downtown. I watched from the lobby as she confidently approached the front desk, received a key card, and took the elevator up. 20 minutes later, Ryan arrived, taking the same elevator. They emerged together 2 hours later, looking relaxed and happy. He kissed her in the parking garage before they separated to their respective cars. It was a passionate kiss, the kind of kiss I hadn't shared with my wife in months. I followed this routine twice more that week. Same hotel, same room number, same betrayal. All the while, I maintained a facade of normalcy at home. I smiled, I made dinner, I asked about her day. I pretended I didn't know that when she said she was networking with clients, she was actually in another man's arms. It was during this surreal period that I discovered more details about their relationship. By continuing to check her phone when she was showering or sleeping, I learned that Ryan was her first serious boyfriend, from her freshman year of college until shortly after graduation. They had broken up when he accepted a job in Seattle, and she had refused to leave her job and family behind. Apparently, he had reached out on social media after moving back to town 4 months ago. What started as innocent catching up quickly evolved into reminiscing about their past relationship, then flirting, then meeting for coffee, and finally, the affair. In one particularly painful message, Ryan had asked her about me. "What about your husband? Do you love him?" Her response made my blood run cold. "James is safe, reliable, but what we have is different. He could never understand me the way you do. Safe, reliable, like a well-worn sweater or a sensible car, not passionate. Not exciting, not enough." I also discovered they weren't being as careful as they thought. In addition to the shirt at the dry cleaners, there were other clues I had missed, receipts from restaurants I'd never been to, a distinctive cologne that sometimes lingered on her clothes, earrings I didn't recognize that had appeared in her jewelry box. And then there were the plans they were making. Messages about a weekend getaway to a coastal bed and breakfast 3 weeks from now. A weekend Melissa had told me would be a girls' trip with her college friends. It was all so calculated, so deliberate. This wasn't a one-time mistake or a momentary lapse in judgment. This was a systematic deception that had been going on for months, right under my nose. The question was, what was I going to do about it? I considered my options carefully. I could confront her immediately, let my anger and hurt pour out in what would undoubtedly be a messy, emotional scene. I could file for divorce without explanation, serving her papers and letting her figure out that I knew. I could try to save our marriage, suggest counseling, beg her to end the affair. Or I could get even. The thought came to me one sleepless night as I lay in our bed, listening to Melissa's peaceful breathing beside me. Why should she get to destroy our marriage on her terms? Why should Ryan get to waltz back into her life and take what was mine? I'm not usually a vindictive person. In my professional life, I pride myself on keeping emotions separate from decision-making. But this betrayal had awakened something primitive in me, a desire to make them both feel the same pain and humiliation I was experiencing. So I formulated a plan. First, I needed to secure my financial future. I moved half of our joint savings into a separate account in my name only. Not everything. I wasn't trying to steal from her, just protecting what was rightfully mine. Next, I consulted with a divorce attorney, gathering information about what a separation would entail. I learned that in our state, adultery could impact spousal support and property division. The lawyer advised me to collect evidence, which I had already been doing. Then I focused on the weekend getaway they had planned. The perfect opportunity to expose their affair and execute my revenge simultaneously. I called the bed and breakfast where they had reservations, and pretending to be Ryan, changed the booking to include an additional surprise. The owner was delighted to help with what she assumed was a romantic gesture. I also reached out to Melissa's parents, with whom I'd always had a good relationship, and her closest friend, Kate. I invited them to meet me for lunch on Saturday, the day Melissa would supposedly be leaving for her girls' trip. I didn't tell them why, just that it was important and concerned Melissa. As the day approached, I became oddly calm, The constant ache in my chest dulled to a manageable throb. I went through the motions of daily life with mechanical precision. I even managed to sleep, though my dreams were chaotic and left me unrested. The night before her trip, Melissa was particularly affectionate. She made my favorite dinner, wore the perfume she knew I loved, initiated sex for the first time in weeks. The performative guilt was almost comical, if it hadn't been so tragic. "I'll miss you this weekend," she said as we lay in the darkness afterward. "It's only a couple of days, but still." "I'll miss you too," I replied, the lie bitter on my tongue, "but you deserve this break. Have fun with the girls." She kissed me one last time before rolling over to sleep, apparently unburdened by conscience. In the morning, I helped her pack, watched her double-check her itinerary, a fictitious schedule of activities she had created to show me, and carried her bag to the car. "Drive safely," I said, kissing her goodbye in our driveway. "Text me when you get there." "I will," she promised. "Love you." "Love you too." I watched her drive away, wondering if that would be the last time I ever spoke those words to her. 2 hours later, I met her parents and Kate at a quiet restaurant downtown. They were confused but happy to see me, asking questions about the mysterious occasion. "I have something to show you," I said after we had ordered. "And I apologize in advance for how difficult this will be to see." I placed my phone on the table and played a video, footage from a private investigator I had hired to document Melissa and Ryan entering and leaving the hotel over the past week. Then I showed them screenshots of text messages, the hotel receipts, and finally, the reservation for the bed and breakfast where Melissa and Ryan were headed at that very moment. The reactions were as expected: shock, disbelief, then anger, not at me, but at Melissa. Her mother cried silently, her father's face turned to stone, and Kate kept shaking her head, repeating, "I had no idea, James. I swear I had no idea." "I know," I assured them. "She lied to everyone, not just me." She told Kate she was going away with work friends this weekend. After the initial shock wore off, I explained the rest of my plan. There were protests at first, concerns that I was taking things too far, but eventually they agreed. Not because they wanted revenge as I did, but because they believed Melissa needed a harsh wake-up call. We drove separately to the coastal town, arriving at the bed and breakfast shortly after 3 p.m. The owner, recognizing me from my phone call when I had identified myself as Melissa's husband after changing the reservation, discreetly provided an extra key to the cottage Ryan had booked. It was a charming place, secluded and romantic, with a private patio overlooking the ocean, the perfect setting for their illicit rendezvous and for my carefully orchestrated revelation. We waited in my car until we saw them arrive. They looked happy, carefree, his arm around her waist as they entered the cottage. We gave them half an hour to settle in, to get comfortable, perhaps to begin what they thought would be a perfect weekend together. Then we approached the cottage. I used the key to let us in quietly. We could hear their voices from the bedroom, laughing about something, completely unaware that their secret world was about to collapse. I led Melissa's parents and Kate to the bedroom door and knocked firmly. The voices inside went silent. After a moment, Melissa called out, "Who is it?" "Room service," I replied, disguising my voice slightly. We heard rustling, whispered instructions, the sound of a closet door closing, Ryan hiding, I presumed. Then Melissa opened the door, wrapped in a robe, her face flushed. The color drained from her cheeks when she saw us standing there, me, her parents, and her best friend, all witnessing her deception firsthand. "James," she gasped. "What? How? Where is he?" I asked calmly. "Call him out. There's no point hiding anymore." Ryan emerged from the closet, already dressed, his expression a mix of defiance and embarrassment. He tried to stand tall, to pretend he wasn't ashamed to be caught like this. "What is this?" he demanded. "You can't just barge in here." "Actually, I can," I said. "I'm still her husband, at least for now." Melissa had started crying, looking desperately at her parents, at Kate, at me. "Please let me explain," but her father cut her off. "Explain what, Melissa? How you've been lying to your husband, to us, to everyone, how you threw away your marriage for this." He gestured dismissively at Ryan. Kate stepped forward, her voice trembling with anger. "You made me complicit in your lie. You told me you were going away with work friends so I would back up your story if James called me. How could you do that?" Melissa looked broken, her carefully constructed double life shattering around her. Ryan, sensing the tide turning, started gathering his things. "I think I should go," he muttered. "That's what you do, isn't it?" I said, turning to him. "When things get difficult, you leave. You did it years ago when you moved across the country, and you're doing it now. The funny thing is, Melissa thought you changed." He didn't respond, just pushed past us and left the cottage. So much for standing by the woman he'd been sneaking around with. Once he was gone, the full weight of the situation descended on the room. Melissa sank onto the edge of the bed, still crying. Her mother sat beside her, not comforting, just present. Her father stood by the window, looking out at the ocean rather than at his daughter. Kate leaned against the wall, arms crossed, and I stood in the doorway, feeling strangely hollow. This was the moment I had planned for, the revenge I had orchestrated, but it brought no satisfaction, no relief from the pain. "I'll give you some time with your family," I said finally. "I've already paid for the cottage for the weekend, you might as well stay." "James, please," Melissa said, reaching for me. "We need to talk about this." "We will," I replied. "But not today. Today you need to face what you've done and who you've hurt, not just me, but everyone who loves you." I left then, walking back to my car alone. My plan had worked perfectly. Melissa had been exposed, humiliated, abandoned by Ryan at the first sign of trouble. I should have felt victorious. Instead, I felt only grief for the death of something I had once cherished. The aftermath was as messy as expected. Melissa didn't stay at the cottage. Her parents drove her home that same night while Kate returned separately. I had already packed a bag and checked into a hotel, not ready to face the shattered remains of our home life. The texts and calls started immediately. First apologetic, then desperate, then angry when I didn't respond. I let them go to voicemail, needing space to process everything before I could have any kind of meaningful conversation. Ryan reached out too, surprisingly. A long email explaining that he had reconnected with Melissa innocently at first, that things had spiraled out of control, that he never meant to hurt anyone. As if his intentions mattered when his actions had been so deliberately destructive. I didn't reply to him either. After 3 days, I finally agreed to meet Melissa at a neutral location, a quiet coffee shop where we were unlikely to run into anyone we knew. She was already there when I arrived, sitting at a corner table, her eyes red-rimmed and shadowed with exhaustion. "Thank you for coming," she said as I sat down across from her. I nodded but didn't speak, waiting for whatever she had to say. "I don't know where to start," she admitted. "I've rehearsed this conversation 100 times in my head, but now that you're here, every explanation sounds hollow." "Because there is no explanation that justifies what you did," I said quietly. "You didn't have a one-night stand or a momentary lapse in judgment. You carried on a deliberate affair for months. You lied to my face every day. You made plans to continue indefinitely." She flinched at each statement but didn't deny them. "I know," she whispered, "and I can't defend it, but I want you to understand that it wasn't about you, James. It wasn't because you were lacking in some way." I laughed bitterly. "Really, because your texts to him suggested otherwise. I was safe and reliable, remember, just not exciting enough to keep your interest." Her eyes widened. "You read our messages?" "Of course I did. Did you think I magically knew about the affair?" "I'm not psychic, Melissa. I investigated like any suspicious spouse would." She looked down at her untouched coffee. "How long have you known?" "Long enough. I found out about Ryan weeks ago. I've been watching you lie to me every day since then, waiting to see how far you would take it." A tear slipped down her cheek. "I never meant for this to happen. When Ryan contacted me, it was just supposed to be catching up with an old friend. But then, seeing him again brought back all these feelings from before. It was like being 20 again, feeling that intense first love." "So you thought the solution was to cheat on your husband rather than, I don't know, talking to me about your feelings, or ending our marriage honorably before starting something with him?" "I didn't want to lose you," she said, her voice breaking. "I know how terrible that sounds, but it's the truth. I wanted both the stability and partnership I had with you and the passion I felt with him." The sheer selfishness of her statement left me speechless for a moment. "Well, congratulations," I finally said. "Now you have neither." Her face crumpled. "Is there any chance at all, that we could try to work through this? Counseling, therapy, whatever it takes. I love you, James. Despite everything, I do love you." I studied her face, searching for the woman I had married. She was still there, physically unchanged, but something fundamental had shifted. The trust was gone, and without it, what remained of our love felt like a shell, empty of substance. I don't know, I answered honestly. Right now, I can't imagine ever trusting you again, and without trust, what kind of marriage would we have? One we rebuild from the ground up, she suggested, a desperate hope in her eyes. People do recover from affairs, it happens all the time. Some people do, I acknowledged, but I'm not sure I'm one of them. I stood up, having said all I could manage for one day. I've taken an apartment month to month. I'll send you the address for any mail. My lawyer will be in touch about next steps. So that's it, she asked, her voice small. You're not even willing to try. I paused, looking down at her. You gave up the right to demand anything from me the moment you decided to betray our vows. If there's any path forward for us, it begins with you accepting that reality. I left her sitting there, walked out into the bright afternoon sunshine, feeling like I was emerging from a long, dark tunnel. Not into happiness, that was still a distant prospect, but at least into clarity. The weeks that followed were focused on practicalities, dividing assets, deciding what to do with the condo, informing friends and family about our separation. Melissa moved temporarily to her parents' house, giving me space to collect my things from our home. It was during one of these visits, as I was boxing up books from my office, that I found the card. It was tucked inside an old programming textbook I hadn't opened in years, a birthday card Melissa had given me during our first year together. The message inside was simple but heartfelt, to the man who makes every day an adventure. I never knew love could be this complete. Happy birthday, James. All my love, Melissa. I sat on the floor of the office, holding that card, remembering the woman who had written those words and meant them. The woman who had once looked at me with genuine love, not obligation or comfort-seeking. What had happened to us? When had we stopped being an adventure to each other and started being a routine? Was I really as safe and reliable as she had described to Ryan, or was that just her justification for seeking excitement elsewhere? These questions haunted me as I continued the mechanical process of dismantling our life together. Melissa respected my need for space, but remained persistent about wanting to save our marriage. She enrolled in individual therapy. She sent thoughtful messages acknowledging her wrongdoing without making excuses. She returned to the activities we had once enjoyed together, as if retracing the path of our relationship to find where things had gone wrong. I maintained my distance, still too hurt and angry to consider reconciliation. But as weeks turned into months, the raw wound of betrayal began to scab over. Not healing exactly, but no longer actively bleeding. 4 months after the confrontation at the cottage, I agreed to meet her for dinner. Not at our old favorite restaurant, too many memories, but at a new place neither of us had been to before. Neutral territory, she looked better than she had at the coffee shop, healthier, more centered. The nervous energy that had always characterized her movements had settled into something calmer. You look well, I said as we sat down. Thank you, she replied. Therapy has been helping. And I've been focusing on figuring out who I am without distractions. Ryan, you mean, she nodded. He reached out a few times after everything happened, but I've cut all contact, not just because of us, but because I needed to understand why I was drawn back to him in the first place. And, I prompted. What did you discover? She considered her answer carefully. That I was using him to avoid dealing with my own issues. The affair wasn't about him or even about you. It was about me feeling stuck in patterns I didn't know how to break, looking for escape rather than working through the hard parts. It was more self-awareness than I had expected from her. What patterns? I asked. Fear of true intimacy, she said. Real closeness terrifies me, so I sabotage it when it starts to feel too real. With Ryan, it was always intense but never truly intimate. We were too young. With you, we built something real, something deep, and that scared me, so I created an escape hatch. I absorbed this, turning her words over in my mind. There was truth in them, a recognition of dynamics I had sensed but never articulated. I appreciate your honesty, I said finally, but understanding the why doesn't erase what happened. I know, she agreed, and I'm not asking for forgiveness yet. I know I haven't earned it. I just wanted you to know that I'm doing the work to make sure I never hurt anyone like that again, whether it's you or someone else. We talked for hours that night, more openly than we had in years. About our marriage, our individual disappointments and unmet needs, the gradual drift that had created space for her affair to take root. It wasn't comfortable, but it was necessary. As we parted outside the restaurant, she didn't try to hug me or touch me, respecting the boundaries I had established. "Thank you for tonight," she said simply. "It meant a lot to me," I nodded. It was clarifying. "Would it be okay if we did this again sometime?" She asked, her voice careful, not presuming anything. I hesitated, then nodded. "I think so, not right away, but yes," she smiled, a small, genuine smile without expectation. "Whenever you're ready, no pressure." I watched her walk to her car, feeling something shift inside me. Not forgiveness, that was still a distant prospect, but perhaps the beginning of understanding. It's been a year since I discovered my wife's affair. 10 months since the confrontation at the cottage. 6 months since we started having regular conversations again. 3 months since I finally agreed to try marriage counseling. I won't pretend it's been easy. There have been setbacks, moments when the anger resurfaces with volcanic intensity, days when I question whether trying to rebuild is worth the emotional toll. Melissa has weathered these storms with patient determination, never defending her actions, always acknowledging the pain she caused. Our therapist says that affairs, painful as they are, sometimes expose issues in a relationship that might otherwise have festered indefinitely. In our case, the affair revealed how we had both stopped truly seeing each other, how we had settled into comfortable roles rather than continuing to grow together. Melissa was wrong to cheat. Nothing justifies that choice, but we were both responsible for the state of our marriage that preceded it. We're living separately still, dating each other in a strange reversal of natural relationship progression. Weekly dinners, occasional movies, carefully controlled physical contact, building from the ground up, as Melissa suggested that day in the coffee shop. I don't know if we'll make it. Trust, once shattered, rebuilds slowly, if at all. There are days when I look at her and still see the betrayal, still feel the humiliation of being deceived so thoroughly. But there are also moments, increasingly frequent, when I see the woman I fell in love with, the one who wrote that birthday card years ago. The one who makes me laugh, challenges my thinking, sees parts of me no one else does. Last week, we were at another dinner party, different friends this time, people who don't know our history. Someone suggested the same party game, the hypothetical question about trading your partner. When it came to Melissa's turn, she looked directly at me across the table. "I wouldn't trade him for anyone," she said quietly. "I already know what it's like to lose him once. I'd never risk that again." The simple sincerity of her answer caught me off guard, and I felt something long dormant stir in my chest. Not forgiveness exactly, but its precursor, the capacity to imagine a future where forgiveness might be possible. Later that night, as we stood at her front door saying goodbye, she asked if I wanted to come in for coffee. It would have been the first time since our separation that I entered her new space, crossed that threshold from public reconciliation to private intimacy. "Not tonight," I said gently, "but maybe soon." She nodded, understanding the weight of even that ambiguous promise. "I'll be here," she said, "however long it takes." As I drove home alone, I thought about the comment that had started it all. I'd trade my husband for my ex in a heartbeat. A joke that had contained more truth than either of us realized at the time. Melissa had traded me, had chosen an illusion of passion over the reality of commitment. And in doing so, she had nearly lost everything. Whether our marriage survives remains to be seen. But whatever happens, we've both learned the hard way that love isn't just about desire or comfort or convenience. It's a choice you make every day, in each moment of temptation or dissatisfaction or boredom. 6 weeks after that night, I finally accepted her invitation for coffee at her place. We talked until sunrise, not just about the affair or our marriage, but about everything, our dreams, fears, the people we had become in the time apart. When morning came, I knew I had a decision to make. "I want to try again," I said as the first rays of sunlight filtered through her kitchen window. Really try, not just going through the motions of reconciliation, but building something new together. The hope that blossomed on her face was tempered with caution. "Are you sure? I don't want you to feel pressured." "I'm not," I assured her. "This is my choice, a clear-eyed choice." We moved back in together a month later, not to our old condo with its tainted memories, but to a new place that belonged to both of us equally. A fresh start. It hasn't been perfect. There are still moments when doubt creeps in, when I check her phone while she's showering, when an unexpected late night at work triggers old suspicions. But those moments are becoming rarer, overshadowed by new memories we're creating together. Last night, as we lay in bed talking about our day, Melissa turned to me with serious eyes. "Do you think you'll ever fully trust me again?" she asked. I considered the question carefully. "I think trust isn't something you can fully rebuild once it's broken," I answered honestly. "But maybe we can build something different, something that acknowledges what happened but isn't defined by it." She nodded, accepting this reality. "I can live with that," she said softly. "As long as we're building it together." I pulled her close, feeling the familiar contours of her body against mine, both unchanged and entirely different from before. That silly party game question still echoes in my mind sometimes. If you could trade your partner for someone else, who would it be? My answer remains the same: I wouldn't trade her. Not because she's perfect or because our relationship is, but because we've fought for this connection, earned it through pain and forgiveness and hard work. And that makes it far more valuable than any idealized alternative could ever be.